Joining us now, staff writer with The New Yorker, Susan Glasser, Democratic pollster and MSNBC political analyst Cornell Belcher, and staff writer for The Atlantic, David Graham, and host of the Bulwark podcast and MSNBC political analyst Tim Miller right here next to me in studio. And Susan, starting with you, you write that Trump 1.0 shutdown is just, sort of the foreshadowing to this one. What did the president do then that Democrats should now be paying attention to in this moment?
Yeah, well, it's really striking to me. This isn't year one of the Trump presidency in that sense. Is all the experience of that first term, I think, is what we're seeing come into play here. Remember that Russ Vought was at the time also the budget director, and he advised Donald Trump back then that he could just ignore Congress in the shutdown fight, which many people saw Donald Trump as losing the shutdown fight. He demanded billions for his border wall. Congress didn't want to give him. In the end, he caved in on the shutdown, and literally hours later, he went around Congress. He signed a decree saying it was a national emergency, and he took the money anyways from other parts of the budget. As you know, now that's become their playbook. They declare everything an emergency. They've done this 10 times so far in the new Trump administration, and then just take the money from Congress. And Congress hasn't stood up for itself. Congress hasn't said, hey, wait a minute, this is our constitutional prerogative. We haven't seen the Supreme Court weigh in a decisive way either. And the result is that when Democrats now are sticking with the shutdown strategy, you see Donald Trump and Russ Vought. What are they doing? They're looking for advantage. They're looking basically to take even more power for the executive. It's not clear that they have the power to unilaterally decide we're going to cancel billions of dollars in projects around the country, punishing Democratic-led cities and states as a result of this shutdown. They may not have the legal power, but unless someone stops them, they're taking it anyways.
All right. So as you're speaking, Susan, the Republican measure to fund this government, open the government again, just failed. Not such a surprise there. So you were alluding to it just a moment ago, but talk about the White House strategy here, leveraging this moment to freeze funding in infrastructure projects for states like the one that we're sitting in here in New York.
Well, that's right. This is a new page, I would say, in the shutdown playbook that has become a familiar ritual in Washington since Newt Gingrich's time. But what's new that Trump and his advisors like Vought are doing is they are taking the moment of the shutdown to threaten to cut massive numbers of thousands of federal jobs in a permanent way, as well as cut this funding in a permanent way. Again, it's not clear that they have the authority to do this, but they're basically telling Democrats they need to cave in and end their fight and end the shutdown, or else more punitive cuts will be coming. It's sort of a stop us before we cut again strategy.
We could have seen the writing on the wall here, David. You wrote about a book about Project 2025, and now it seems like we're seeing shades of this fight coming to fruition. Was this the plan all along?
I think in general it was. The whole plan was to grab more executive power. There was a belief that Congress was no longer willing or able to protect its prerogatives, and that a president could grab a lot of power and use that. And that's what we've seen Trump doing since the beginning of his administration with the help of Russell Vought. And I think it's very, it's helpful for them in this situation. We're seeing that Congress is unwilling to stand up for itself. And also what we see is Democrats saying, we can't trust Republicans because of strategies that Russell Vought laid out. Rescission. Doesn't matter what we allocate. If the White House is going to impound those funds, or if it's going to try to rescind those funds, the deal isn't worth anything. So I think everything we see, both the causes of this, the outcomes, and what's going on in the White House during the middle of this, it all comes from the Project 2025 plans and from ideas that Russ Vought has been laying out for years now.
Cornell, what does the polling suggest when it comes to this shutdown and the showdown over health care? I'd be curious to know from you what you're hearing from Americans about how they feel about all of this.
Well, look, I think Democrats have put health care and the looming health care crisis as the central part of the argument that they're making to Americans about ACA premiums going up and millions of Americans being kicked off of their health insurance, and sort of centered the looming healthcare crisis, which there is a looming healthcare crisis happening, and they're trying to stop that. That seems to be on pretty good footing. I mean, even if you look at in the polling, and then Washington Post poll came out, you have upwards of 70% of Americans who are on the policy side with Democrats. Even a majority of even Trump supporters are for these taxes that help them pay for healthcare premiums being extended. So from a policy side, I think Democrats are on sound footing. The other part about this is look, there's a lot of dangerous things that are happening, right? As not even the Democrat or Republican, the ability now for the executive branch to basically do whatever it wants to do without any check or balances. I'm gobsmacked at how quickly the whole idea of checks and balances have evaporated. But what I think is dangerous also for Republicans when they start cutting funding for so-called blue states is, if you're Mike Johnson and they're cutting billions of dollars of funding for projects in blue states and infrastructure projects, have you seen where a lot of swing districts are that they're going to need to hold on to? They're not necessarily in Texas, right? There's a ton of where you're sitting right now in New York. There are a lot of swing districts where Republicans need to hold on in New York. In California, there are a lot of swing districts where Republicans need to hold on, right? In Illinois, you can go through the blue states, and if Republicans are, if they're hurting blue state, what they're really hurting are Republicans' opportunity and chances to hold the House, I think, going into the midterm election.
So, Tim, to that point, there are Republicans out there that are somewhat tepid about the idea of withholding these funds to those kinds of places that Cornel just mentioned, the bluer areas, because they need to placate voters in those same spots. We even had Senator Kevin Cramer telling Semaphore that, this might be a good moment for the Republicans, but he says, I just don't see why we would squander it, which I think is the risk of being aggressive with executive power in this moment. So can or will more moderate Republicans that are frustrated with this situation, can they do anything about it, and will they?
Yeah, it's interesting. Kevin Cramer's from North Dakota is a pretty far-right Republican.
Yeah.
I would call him a moderate. So if he is saying, whoa, might want to step on the brakes here, I think that's a sign
notable.
that they can see that there's a real risk. And look, Susan was talking about how there's one thing that's new here with Trump as we've been through a lot of these shutdowns. And another element of what's new is that in the past, you showed Newt Gingrich, right? People arguing for shutdowns. Republicans are arguing for shutdowns. They're like, this spending is bad. It'd be better for us to balance the budget. It'd be better for everybody. You have Democrats right now saying we need to have this fight because people want to have health care premiums. The message coming out of the White House is basically, we know people are going to suffer, and we want to try to make it the Democrats' fault, and we want to take over more power. And they've said that blatantly. I think that is not, usually in these fights, everybody's trying to point fingers at the other side and try to argue that their policies will actually help people. That's not even the administration's stance here. The administration stance is, we're going to cut these jobs. It's going to hurt people. We think it's going to hurt our enemies. So that's a bet we're willing to take. And we'll see if the Democrats ever cry uncle. I guess we'll see how that turns out, but that's their stated message.
Is there any point at which you see that backfiring in real time and that GOP does a 180 in all of this and compromises to some degree?
That poll that Cornel is showing about just the healthcare subsidies, it would not be. I think it'd be politically savvy for the Republicans to just cut a deal on the healthcare subsidies. I think it's kind of a questionable strategy for the Democrats to pick this issue because it would basically extend the pain for voters past the next midterm election. I think right now the Democrats could use this issue and say, if your healthcare premiums are going up, it's the Republicans' fault. They wouldn't come to the table. So I think it would be savvy for the Republicans to do it. I don't think there's any signs that they're going to do that, though. I think what they want is to use this to advance the power grabs that they've been putting forth from DOGE all the way through now that was in the Project 2025 playbook. And I think that's what they intend to do. And I don't think there's any incentive for them to stop at this point.
Susan, you've warned that this entire situation could backfire for both parties, as we were just talking about. What comes next in your mind, and who comes out as the perceived winner and loser, at least in the short term?
Yeah, I think Tim's point is a really important one to underscore here. What you're hearing from President Trump is something really different than we've heard in previous rounds of government shutdowns. Donald Trump now calls this a, quote, unprecedented opportunity. What's the opportunity? He views himself in sort of a win-win situation, it seems to me right now. He wins from his perspective if Democrats cave after having, insisted upon this fight, right? So that would be one version of winning. Another version of winning is his agenda to expand executive power and to further cut the government. That is the agenda of Russ Vought and many of those surrounding Donald Trump. It's essentially the extension of the decades-long Republican war on the government. So he's not looking to defend the federal workers who've been put out on furlough. That's why it muddies the message as far as some congressional Republicans go. They just want to win a fight in a more conventional Capitol Hill sense. Well, Donald Trump doesn't really care about Congress. He doesn't really care about process. He doesn't really care about a short-term kind of tactical victory over Senate Democrats. What he's looking for always is to aggrandize his power. And I think that the problem for Democrats is that Donald Trump now sees this as a win-win situation for himself.
Cornel, is it also a problem for Democrats the longer this goes on?
That's a good question, and we don't know. Look, we've come a long way since the time when Gingrich shut the government down, and you could look and say Republicans paid a price. I got to tell you, if you look back at the last couple of shutdowns, I'm not sure that voters are going into the voting booth thinking, I'm going to vote against them because they shut down the government. I think it's become a lot more complicated than this. I do want to touch on a point that Tim made, though, because I think it's a really good one, and it's problematic for Democrats, is that they picked a fight on something that, quite frankly, the majority of Americans would like to see happen. If Republicans would simply say, okay, then Republicans actually come out looking pretty good, and they do take a tool away from Democrats going into the midterm. There are plenty of folks on the left who say, you know what? If Republicans have done this and they control all branches of the government, we should allow the American people to feel the pain of what Republican policies are. I mean, you can't keep, if you want to touch the stove, at some point, you got to let them touch the stove. And this is a terrible thing to have to say, because millions of people will be hurt by it. But what's the other option, right? They have to see the consequences of what Republican policies will do to them and their families. And Democrats keep bailing them out.